On September 11th, 2001, Katie Couric and Matt Lauer were on the Today Show, and they had some breaking news. Just before they went to the video, they were sitting behind some flowers. Katie had what looked like a script on her lap, and Matt Lauer looked like he was reading something behind the flowers. Can we really tell that they were reading something? Let's listen to what they said. Just before they went to the video, Katie Couric's eyes left the camera and looked down at what looked like a script. The breaking news was about the Twin Towers. Let's hear Katie describe them.
Twin Towers, a New York landmark, how...
You heard correctly. Katie called the Twin Towers a New York landmine, and then she quickly corrected herself and called it a landmark. This shows that Katie was reading a printed script and probably encountered a hyphenated word. Let's listen to Katie as she moved into this mistake.
Needless to say, it's pandemonium, I am sure, down there, and we gathered that from even the eyewitnesses with whom we spoke, and how terrifying this was for them to see. And you can only imagine, as you get closer to the Twin Towers, a New York landmark, what the scene must be like there.
She used pandemonium, a pretty big word. Each of the witnesses with whom we spoke, correct but stilted grammar. And then after she realized she made a mistake, she confused how and what. Let's listen to Katie make another quick change in her grammar that doesn't really seem necessary unless you're reading from a script.
Of course, on everybody's mind who might have been hurt as a result of this terrible, terrible incident.
Even an eyewitness can be heard making a quick correction in grammar.
Also, another eyewitness, Elliot Walker, who is actually a producer here on the Today Show. Elliot, can you hear me?
Listen to the quick correction in her eyewitness report.
Plumes of smoke. There must have been a...
There must have been? Is this the sort of correction an eyewitness would make in a terrifying report? Now listen to Matt Lauer start a small word and then say the small word again, all the way.
And you know, we've seen stories in the past where planes have hit buildings, small planes, and it would be hard to imagine that a small plane could create that kind of hole in a building like the World Trade Center and create the damage on the other side of the building from the sheer impact. Small planes tend to crumple and then fall down the building.
Now listen to Al Roker say two times.
You know, you talked about the buildings looking like they're buckled. They're designed to have a 2-degree sway in either direction because of the height of the building and to be able to deal with wind and stress. But something like that is more than it's probably designed.
This isn't the only bit of obscure information our weatherman has right in the middle of breaking news.
Tall buildings have had a real problem here in New York. There was, back in the 40s, a plane hit the Empire State Building. In the 60s, a helicopter crashed on the top of what was the Pan Am Building, now the MetLife Building.
Now let's listen to an NBC producer for the Today Show talk calmly to Katie.
And also another eyewitness, Elliot Walker, who is actually a producer here on the Today Show. Elliot, can you hear me?
Yes, hi, Katie.
Hi, Elliot. Tell me where you are and what you saw.
Well, I live in this area. I've returned to my apartment, but I was walking down the sidewalk, delivering my young daughter to school, and we heard a very loud sound, the kind of sound you hear when a plane is going fast past you, followed by an enormous crash and an immediate explosion. I don't think we could feel shock waves, but we sort of felt like we did. And we were in a position where we could see the Trade Center almost immediately between the other buildings, and an enormous fireball that must have been 300 feet across was visible immediately. A secondary explosion, I think, and then plumes of smoke. There must have been a 3-block cloud of white smoke. Now, from where I was on the street a moment ago, you can in fact see smoke leaving the building on 3 sides. It seems to be coming out on at least 4 or 5 floors. The air is filled with hundreds of thousands of pieces of paper that are just sort of floating like confetti. The area is swarmed with emergency vehicles and sirens.
Have
And
you seen-
obviously, we're very sensitive to this kind of thing in this neighborhood.
Let's listen to part of that interview again to notice all of the odd things that happened as she's describing her calm experience in a terrifying day.
And we were in a position where we could see the Trade Center almost immediately between the other buildings.
Just more dumb luck. They were in a position where they could see the Trade Center almost immediately between the buildings. Why the in the middle of a live eyewitness report?
And an enormous fireball that must have been 300 feet across was visible immediately.
The fireball is 80 stories above the ground, and our eyewitness can make an estimate about how large it was.
A secondary explosion, I think, and then
Now our eyewitness thinks it's a secondary explosion. Sounds like a calmly recited police report, not an eyewitness report.
plumes of smoke. There must have been a
Here's our eyewitness making a correction in her verb tense from must be to must have been. Is this an eyewitness report, or is she reading a script and made a little mistake?
3-block cloud of white smoke. Now, from
3-block cloud? More instant geography. And as she lowers her voice and then raises it when she says now, it sounds like she's beginning a new paragraph in a script.
where I was on the street a moment ago, you can in fact see smoke leaving the building on 3 sides. It seems to be coming out.
Our eyewitness is back at home. How does she know what you can in fact see from where she was on the street a few minutes ago?
On at least 4 or 5 floors.
Our eyewitness makes another dimension estimate from about 80 floors away.
The air is filled with hundreds of thousands of pieces of paper that are just sort of floating like confetti.
Now some more math, a nice little analogy, but why all the sounds in the middle of an eyewitness report?
The area is swarmed with emergency vehicles and sirens.
Emergency vehicles, and sirens. A live report? Now let's listen to another television producer describe her morning to Matt Lauer.
I want to go now out to Jane Daranowski, who I understand is a television producer here in New York. Jane, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. I'm down here near the World Trade Center. I was walking down 6th Avenue this morning at 8:42 a.m. A group of us saw a plane veer through the buildings. Then we saw a huge cloud of smoke, and then fire came out of one of the towers.
At 8:42 a.m.? Who looks at their watch in the middle of a terrifying incident? The first eyewitness to call in to Katie that morning was, you guessed it, a television producer. She told Katie quite a few details that she recalled quite a bit differently when she wrote about it 10 years later.
But on the phone, we do have Jennifer Oberstein, who apparently witnessed this event. Jennifer, can you hear me?
Hello?
Hi, Jennifer.
Hi, Katie.
Hi, can you please tell me what you saw and to give me any information about what's going on there?
Yes.
Jennifer used to be a producer for NBC News in New York. She mentions this briefly.
As you know, I used to work in news. I've never seen any fire like this.
She explains how she came to see the World Trade Center fire.
Now, I came out of the subway at Bowling Green. I was heading to work in Battery Park at the Ritz-Carlton Hotel.
And later she repeats the similar story with a little odd detail.
When I walked out of the subway, I looked at the Twin Towers because, I just always look up there.
It does seem a little odd that a regular New Yorker would always look up at the Twin Towers as they got out of the subway station. But 10 years later, she wrote that she looked up like a tourist. During her live report, she told Katie a couple of times how she interacted with the people around her that day.
I got to tell you, we were all saying around here that it was very interesting that it would be a bomb and it would be so high up.
And a little later on, she also said,
And And I looked around at people. We were all horrified.
But compared to all this supposed discussion with her passerby neighbors on the day of the event, 10 years later she wrote, "I looked around, but people just kept walking. It was as if nothing unusual had happened." But even her own recollection of what she saw herself that day changed quite a bit when she recalled it 10 years later. On September 11th, she told Matt Lauer,
I'm right now, you see, yeah, I see major fire. I definitely see fire.
10 years later she wrote, "I could see debris falling, but there was no longer a fire visible." Which version of events should we believe today? It was the Today Show, but was it a live event, or was it just a show?
Twin Towers, a New York landmark, how Twin Towers, a New York landmark, how Twin Towers, a New York landmark, how